See if I'm live.
Just it's coming automatically. Like, it is admin maybe. Here it is coming next to this. So admin, so we can see this. Yeah, Kanwal. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Just look, I can start it.
You can't share screen here, okay? The share screen option doesn't come on. Okay, good morning everybody. This is Dr. Sampath Prasad. I'm an ENT surgeon, a cochlear implant specialist, and also specialized in skull-based surgery. So I work at Apollo Spectra Hospitals. I'm based in Bangalore, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My mandate today is to speak on implantable hearing devices that are used to restore hearing in hearing related disorders. Now, joining me is Dr. Kavita.
Hi,
Dr.
everyone.
Kavita Prakash Paled is my colleague and working with me at in the Department of ENT at Apollo Spectra Hospitals, Koramangala, Bangalore. And she will also be joining in as a speaker to discuss about cochlear and other auditory implants. Now, before we get into the subject, I'd like to discuss with you some anatomy. Now, unfortunately, I can't share my computer screen, so I'll have to show you some pictures. Now, I have this picture with me. I hope you can see it. Okay, so this is a picture of the ear, and yes, so this is the picture of the ear. Now, if you see, we have what is called the external ear. That is the part of the ear that you see from outside. This leads into a canal. This is called the external ear canal. And the external ear is separated from the middle ear by what is called the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane is a barrier between skin and mucous membrane that is there inside the middle ear. Now, the middle ear essentially is an empty space which is connected to the nose through a small tube called the Eustachian tube. Now, this space also has a chain of three small bones called the ossicles, the malleus, incus, and stapes. So these three bones form a bridge between the tympanic membrane, which is laterally, to the cochlea, which is medially, which is a part of the inner ear. So the inner ear is where the cochlea is. The cochlea is more or less the engine of hearing. This is where the nerve endings arise from, and they go into the brain through a canal called the internal auditory canal or internal ear canal. So we have the outer ear, middle ear, and the inner ear. Now, the outer ear, as I told you, is lined by skin, and it's separated from the middle ear by the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane, along with the three small bones, form a bridge which conducts the air waves that hit the tympanic membrane into the cochlea. Then the cochlea is disturbed, and the waves, cochlea has water in it, water-like substance, and the vibrations which are conducted through the external ear mechanisms reach the cochlea, disturb the water or fluid within the cochlea, and this generates a sort of electricity, small electrical currents, which are then carried into the brain by the nerves of the cochlea, which is called the cochlear nerve. So this is in brief the anatomy of the ear. So remember that there's the outer ear, middle ear, and the inner ear. So the outer ear and the middle ear functions as a conductive mechanism, and the inner ear, that is the cochlea, and the nerves that come from the cochlea act as a sensory neural mechanism, that the nerve mechanism. So there are two parts, part A, part B. Part A of the hearing is by the transmission of waves that hit the tympanic membrane, sound waves that hit the tympanic membrane, which are carried by the three small bones into the cochlea. When the cochlea is stimulated, as I told you before, the nerve endings get stimulated. So the cochlear part and the neural part, which is all inside the inner ear, forms the sensory neural compartment of hearing. Now, if there's a problem in hearing in the outer ear and the middle ear, that essentially contributes to a defect in the conductive part, that there is no nerve involved in this. Whereas any problem in the cochlea or in the nerves that arise from the cochlea and that go to the brain is contributes to what is called the sensory neural hearing loss, or the neural compartment of the hearing loss. Okay, so remember that there are two parts to hearing. The first part, part A, is outer ear, middle ear, the tympanic membrane and the ossicles, which contribute to the conductive part, and the second part, part B, is a problem within the inner ear, the cochlea and the nerves, that contribute to what is called the sensory neural hearing loss. Now, why is this important? Why did I show you this picture? I wanted to share the screen, and I had a couple of good presentations which probably could have explained the whole condition, explained my subject better to you, but unfortunately I'm unable to share my screen. That was the initial idea, but nevertheless, let's go ahead with what we are supposed to discuss. So the reason why I showed you this anatomical representation is to describe to you two components of hearing. One is the conductive component, one is the sensory neural component. It's very important for us to understand these two components of hearing. That's because if there is a problem in the tympanic membrane, the outer ear, or the middle ear, that is the chain of bones that connect the tympanic membrane to the cochlea. So if there's any problem in the conductive mechanism, that leads to a conductive hearing loss. Now, this can be rehabilitated in a certain way. There could be surgeries attempted to restore, let's say, a hole in the tympanic membrane or a lost bone in the ossicular chain. So this can be reconstructed. There are implantable options to restore conductive hearing. Now, the problem comes when there is a sensory neural hearing loss. So again, going by this picture, the blue cochlea. The cochlea is like a snail-like structure which is in the inner ear. So the cochlea and the nerve, if this is damaged, restoration of hearing becomes a little more tricky. It's no longer easy. It's no longer straightforward, because we all know that once there is a problem with nerves, the nerves do not recover so easily. It's very difficult to regenerate a lost nerve. Now, suppose somebody has a paralysis, due to a stroke or something in the brain. We all know that this paralysis doesn't really correct by itself. The paralyzed parts of the body, the limbs, for instance, do not recover, and even if they do recover slowly, it takes a very long time. So neural damage is more or less irreversible. So this is a little tricky. I told you that the conductive component, that is the tympanic membrane and the three ossicles, can be restituted, can be treated. It's not so difficult, but restoring hearing loss due to a sensory neural component is always difficult. In the past, there was practically no solution to a problem wherein the hearing loss was due to a damage of the to the cochlea or the nerve, that is sensory neural damage. But fortunately today we have a few solutions, including what is called a cochlear implant. Now let's go step by step. So we will first discuss the more easier or the more straightforward aspects of hearing loss, that is the conductive component. Then we get into the sensory neural component. Now, we are not going to discuss too much about hearing aids. Now, hearing aids are miniature loudspeakers. To put it in plain words, it's not so straightforward, but to make a layman understand a technical issue, let me draw an analogy to a loudspeaker. So we know that, or for your radios, mobile phones, now suppose you keep your speaker at a lower volume, you hear less. You increase the volume, you hear better. Similarly, a loudspeaker enables you to hear better just by amplifying the volume of sound, isn't it? So now when we talk about rehabilitation of hearing due to a hearing aid, that means that the hearing aid a small miniature loudspeaker like device is kept in the ear canal, that is in the external ear canal, and this gives an amplified sound which enables the whole mechanism, the conductive mechanism, sensory mechanism, to act a little better. So this is an amplifier effect. Now the device itself doesn't latch on to any particular anatomical structure in the ear. That means that the hearing aid does not touch itself to the tympanic membrane, to the ossicles, or whatever. Whereas the implantable devices, which I'm going to discuss further, which we are going to discuss further, latch themselves on to more anatomical parts of the ear. So let this be clear that we are beginning with the hearing aid. The hearing aid is kept in the ear. It's a small miniature loudspeaker, helps you hear better. Amplified sound helps you hear better. It causes no anatomical change. It does not touch itself to any anatomical structure. Now, this hearing aid is useful only for a limited set of indications for hearing loss. Now, suppose there is a very high degree of nerve damage, that is the cochlear part, the inner ear part, and the nerve part. If that is damaged very severely, that is almost 80, 90, 100% of hearing is gone because of a damage to the nerve or the cochlea, whereas the tympanic membrane and the ossicles are all right. So the conductive component is all right, the sensory neural component is damaged. There is no way that even the best loudspeaker can give back any hearing. So because there is a problem within, there is a problem in the nerve, that the whatever you amplify, how much ever volume you give to the loudspeaker, this is not going to be carried beyond the nerve, and your brain is not going to appreciate the input. So a hearing aid is effectively used for either conductive hearing loss or mixed hearing loss, which means that the problem is either in the tympanic membrane or the ossicles, that is outer ear, middle ear, or there is a problem in the conductive hearing loss and a small deficit in the sensorineural part, in part B, okay, in the cochlea and the nerve. So if the nerve damage is very severe, the hearing loss becomes useless, the hearing aid becomes useless. So we are not going to discuss hearing aids today, because the topic of discussion is more about surgical implantable devices, which are a step ahead of the hearing devices. Okay, so we are going to begin with the cochlear implants. Now, cochlear implant is a phenomenal device. It's a phenomenal technology that helps restore hearing to a person who has had sensory neural hearing loss. That is, a person who has lost, who has had anatomical problems, or the disease is either in the cochlea or the nerve. Now, how does that happen? How did this miracle happen? In the past, let's say about 25 years back, this was impossible to rectify. If somebody had a nerve problem or the cochlear problem, it was impossible to bring back hearing in such a person. But over the last couple of decades, a new technique called cochlear implant has come about, and this has changed the life of more than 5 to 6 million people across the world, okay, especially young children. Now, in very young children who are born deaf, okay, just like, there are a lot of people who are born blind, so there are a lot of people who are born deaf. A lot of young babies are born deaf. Now, when this young baby is born deaf, the problem not only lies in loss of hearing, but the baby, when the baby grows up, over the first 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, up to 5 years, the baby does not hear, because the baby's nerves are gone, cochlea is gone. The baby does not hear its own voice also. Okay, so the baby is able to speak, the baby is able to cry, the baby is able to make noises from the larynx, from the throat, but that doesn't reach the ear, that doesn't reach the brain, because of a problem in the cochlea or in the nerves that go from the cochlea to the brain. Now, this leads to what is called a deaf and dumb situation. So generally, very small babies who are born deaf also end up being dumb. When I say dumb, they can't speak because in the beginning they make some noise. The babies cry, but the baby doesn't hear its own cry, and this leads the baby to believe that this function is useless. And over a period of time, if the baby doesn't continue to hear, the baby completely loses the function of an organ which is actually perfect, and that's very unfortunate. So if somebody loses an eye, for instance, they lose just an eye. If a baby is born blind, the baby loses just the vision. The baby can hear, the baby can speak. But the problem with a baby born deaf is that if the baby is born deaf, then the baby also cannot hear its own voice, so the baby grows up to become dumb, also deaf and dumb. So one loss of one sense leads to the loss of another very significant function, that is of the speech also, and that's very, very tragic. So what's path breaking or life changing or a game changer in cochlear implant is the fact that now today we have a technology which helps young babies, especially most lot of people across the world with sensorineural hearing loss, but especially young, very small babies, to grow up with normal hearing and thereby with normal speech as well. So Dr. Kavita is going to take over from here. She's going to tell you more about the history, this fascinating story about how cochlear implantation was invented by a very legendary ENT surgeon called Bill House from New York, from the House Ears Institute in New York, which is there even today, back in the 60s and 70s. So she's going to tell you more about this, and she's going to tell you about the types of cochlear implantable devices. And then I'm going to come back to you and talk to you about the surgical aspects, or how to go about doing a surgery and put this implant in its place. And we are also going to discuss other implants like bone anchored hearing implants and a few other things, auditory brainstem implants as well. So please be with us. So Dr. Kavita is going to talk to you now, and I'm going to put it across to Dr. Kavita to talk to you about the hearing, about the cochlear implants.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Kavita Prakash Pallet, working under guidance of Dr. Sampath Chandra Prasad Rao sir. So coming to a history of a cochlear implantation, there were 5 eras in the development of auditory implants. Initially, there were some forerunners and there are pioneers who did experiments in 1960s and 1970s. They did a study of the feasibility of this cochlear implants and the safety of this implant. Is it biocompatible, or it causes the infection into the ear, and they did also the evaluation of the auditory gain in 1970s. Finally, they came into a picture of this. They got the picture of this cochlear implantation, and they devised a commercially available multi-electrode channel implant in 1980s. And there was also a further era developing auditory brainstem implant in 1990s. So, who was the first forerunner who thought about bringing a hearing in human mankind? So, Alessandro Olto, who was an Italian physicist, who took 2 metal rods in his ear with the 50 volts of difference, and then he stimulated the ear so that he heard a boom in his boom noise in his ear, as well as a soup boiling in his ear. It's like a hissing noise he heard. Then he thought about bringing about some thing which will stimulate the hearing, so that we can give a life to many kids who are born deaf, born without hearing. Then he thought it is very uncomfortable, which lacked the tonal quality. Then, coming to 18th century, the Duchenne of Boulogne from Paris, he used the alternative current to stimulate the ear. This was also once again uncomfortable, loss of tonal quality, and the introduction of this telephone gave idea, and finally they came into conclusion that there should be an implant which should be implanted into the ear so that it will stimulate the nerve which sir mentioned. So who was the one pioneers who did this? The one of the Andre Journo and Charles Iris, who did a electrical stimulation of this auditory nerve in 1950s. And his student Claude Henry Choward, he developed a multi-channel implant called Chorimac 12, which had a 12 channels. So after that, the John Doyle, a neurosurgeon, and his brother James Doyle, who experimented electrical stimulation of the cochlea, and they recorded the sound potential from this cochlear nerve. And they also developed a 5-wire electrode implant. But this 5-wire electrode implant was supportive theory was wrong because it represented only the same frequency. According to this thing, it should represent the speech frequency which we speak from 500 to 2000 hertz. This is a speech frequency they should develop, and it should represent the different frequencies in the cochlea. Thinking about that, the Blair Simpsons, he developed the 6-channel cochlear implant, and he represented the tonotopy of the cochlea. Tonotopy means it represents the image of the cochlea, means it represents the each frequency, what frequency is represented in each part of the cochlea, so that each frequency is stimulated and that speech whole range is heard by a ear. So William F. House was the first one who successfully developed the single channel device which was used in the improvement of lip reading, speech production, and quality of life. In 1980s, the Vianney and Choriak and Clark developed the multi-channel cochlear implantation, and further House and Hitzelberg developed the multi-channel implantation into the brainstem. So coming to the FDA approved Tamlin, finally they developed the 3 types of implants which are FDA approved, which is biocompatible, and which is by the Cochlear Nucleus Company, as well as Advanced Bionics, as well as Medal devices, which are used in 12 months onwards. So why 12 months onwards? Because the speech development is very important in kids during that time. Once the speech, once this hearing develop, then only the speech will be developed. So it is all interlinked, as sir mentioned previously. So this era of this cochlear implantation, not only cochlear implantation, they developed something called bone anchored hearing aids and also middle ear implants, which also led to the adding of to this implantation. So all this implantation did in millions of kids, which give them a normal leading life. So these pioneers helped us so that there will be advancement in the hearing, so that each person, no need to panic if you're deaf born or deaf born, or you if you become deaf after also after developing speech also, still we can give a hearing as equal to as normal persons. So coming to the types of implants, first I'm going to speak about cochlear implant. So as sir mentioned, the cochlea, which is the inner ear. So what is cochlear implant? The name itself indicates we'll implant in the cochlea. So it is the computerized processes partially replace the functions of the cochlea. So it acts as a cochlea. So it will convert the sound energy into electrochemical signal. It will code the signals and it forms a meaningful speech in the cortex. And multidisciplinary team is involved in this cochlear implantation. One is ENT surgeon, another is audiologist who will assess the hearing, and speech and language therapist, psychologist, and a social worker. Coming to this cochlear implantation, I mentioned three types. So this is a cochlear implantation. So this is the receiver complex which will be placed in the bone of the ear here, and this is the electrodes, so which has so many channels. So why are these channels there? So these channels represents a different speech frequency, so that whenever you speak, these electrodes will catch up those frequency, and they will encode that code will be sent to a brain. Okay. So these are multiple companies which have 16 electrodes and 24 electrodes and 19 electrodes. This is a 22 electrodes. So it is depending upon the this thing, hearing this thing, we will decide which implant to be used. So so who are the candidates who will be utilized by this? One is child born deaf and dumb, deaf, and also adult with the after developing speech he has lost the hearing, as well as in a prelingual adults also, who it is very difficult for them to develop hearing, but still we can implant and try in those people also. But this cochlear implantation we can't do in a patient who has a developmental issue of the cochlea, where the one turn is not there or missing cochlea. So in those people it's not indicated. So coming before implantation, we have to criteria to in whom we have to implant. So after deciding in whom we have to implant, we have to do a thorough ENT examination. There should be no any outside infection, as well as there should be no any fungal infection, and you should evaluate the psychological status of the baby, and you should evaluate the other system, any diseases, and you should take a history of any infection during the pregnancy status, which will affect the inner ear. And also you should see any after birth there is any hyperbilirubinemia, means increase the liver bilirubin. So, and you should also do imaging to see any anatomical changes, so that we can decide about the cochlear implantation. And you should do a audiological screening, and kids should be immunized with the pneumococcus and the streptococcus influenza. And better to go for bilateral implantation, because it has improved sound localization and speech detection, and by both the ears information summation. So coming to one more implant. So so there are only three types of implants. One is inner ear, you should put the implant, that is cochlear implant. Another one is through the ear, through the outside, through the bone, that is bone anchored hearing aid. See this picture. So one implant you can put onto the bone, that is bone anchored hearing aid. One is the cochlea, and one is in the middle ear, that is middle ear implant. Another one I'll explain at the last. So coming to bone anchored hearing aid, so we will implant the hearing aid here onto the bone, so that I'll just show you on picture. So this is implanted onto the ear, so the bone behind the ear. So through this, what happens, can you see this picture once again? So this, through this implant, so sound is generated and transferred to this titanium screw, which is fixed into the in our bone, and through this titanium screw the sound is directly transmitted to the cochlea. Cochlea is once again inner ear. Once again it produces the fluid vibration and inner hair cells, and it will produces the electrical stimulation, and once again this will be transferred to the brain. So in whom which candidates will do this bone anchored hearing aid? Why bone? Because the outer ear and the middle ear, if any kids having problem like which we the infection which cannot be treated chronically, it is discharged discharging, and in whom the outer ear is not developed, and in whom the middle ear, as sir said, there are three ossicles. If there is a fixation of those ossicles by otosclerosis or tympanosclerosis, means calcium deposit in those ossicles, when there is no mobility in this, the outer and the middle ear, it doesn't work, means then we should go for a Baha implant. Okay, so this works by osseointegration as into the bone and directly stimulate the cochlea. So what are the components of this Baha? Just I'll explain the parts. This is the screw which is implanted into the bone, and this is the abutment which connects this speech processor as well as this screw. So next implant, we can go for middle ear implants. Is just it is once again the ossicles will implant directly onto the ossicles, so that the vibration is produced directly transferred to the inner ear. So now directly will go to a middle ear auditory brainstem implant. So whenever the outer ear, middle ear as well as the inner ear is affected by some tumors like vestibular neurofibroma, which affects the nerve itself, or the cochlea which becomes calcified, which will become completely closed by infection of the brain, and if there is a trauma to the head and which has damaged this inner ear, and if there is any advanced otosclerosis involving the inner ear, and if there is any malformation, as I mentioned before, like non-formation of this cochlea, or less turns in the cochlea, then what we should do is we should bypass all this inner ear as well. So after bypassing inner ear as well, what we see is so this is the auditory brainstem pathway. So after this inner ear, it will go to the brainstem as well as midbrain, and finally it represents to the cortex. So there are some implants where we can implant onto this brainstem as well as the midbrain. Even though some tumors affecting the brainstem also there, then also we can restore the hearing by implanting into the midbrain. So these are the implants used whenever the mentioned indications. This represent a tonotopical representation of the cochlea is there in these electrodes which are implanted into the brainstem as well as middle ear, which represents just like a cochlea, which has all frequencies just like a cochlea, and from there directly it is transmitted to the auditory cortex. So these are the types of implants we can use in different conditions, so that we can restore hearing in different possible candidates, so that they can lead a normal life. Thank you. Now I am going to give it to Dr. Sampath Chandra Prasad Rao sir, who will be dealing about surgical options and surgical procedure, how it is done.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Kavita. So that was an extensive description of cochlear implants and other auditory implants. I hope you've understood in detail about what the device is all about. Now I'm going to conclude this session by describing to you what a cochlear implant is and how it is fixed by means of surgery into the ear. Now, as I told you earlier, the cochlear implant is to restore hearing in sensorineural hearing loss. Okay, so I'm sorry we lost power. I'll continue nevertheless. So so what happens in a cochlear? Now, the cochlear implant, there are the cochlear implant has an external component and an internal component. Okay, so I'm going to show you that. If the current comes, I can show you that on the screen. I'll show you my, yes, so there we go. Okay, so now if you see this picture here, you see that there are two structures here. The thing on the right is the external part and the thing on the left is the internal part. Now the internal part has a structure there, and it's got a long tail like thing which is an electrode which goes into the cochlea. The device which is on the right side is the external component. Okay, so now what happens when we insert a cochlear implant? The cochlear implant, what it does is it's got a speech processor. So it's got a microphone which absorbs speech. Assume that there is no hearing whatsoever and we are trying to put a cochlear implant into the ear. So the implant has to work or function as if it is the ear, and it has to stimulate the cochlear nerve. Okay, so what it does is it picks up the sound using a microphone. So I'll show you again another picture. Okay, so you see this. So now this component is what I'm talking to you about. Okay, so this structure here has a microphone and it has a coil that leads to a transmitter. Now this is called the transmitter. Okay, this one. So the microphone picks up the sounds and sends it into the transmitter, and this whole device here divides the sound that it has received into various frequencies, and this is the part that is outside the ear. Okay, and the part on the left here, I'm showing it to you now here, this is the part that goes into the ear by means of surgery. So this component here is the receiver stimulator complex. This has an electrode, and this electrode goes into the cochlea. Okay, you see that last tip there, like a coil, that's the cochlea. So now the surgery involves opening up the skin behind the ear and fixing the second part that I showed you, the receiver stimulator complex and the electrode. It involves fixing this part into the bone and pushing this last final bit into the cochlea, the electrode. Okay, that is to go into the cochlea. So this has to be fixed into the bone, and this electrode has to go into the cochlea, whereas this part, that is the external component, remains outside like a hearing aid around the ear. So what we do is we essentially do a incision behind the ear. We drill bone behind the ear. If you just fold your ear forwards, your pinna, this pinna, if you fold it forwards, you will find that there is bone behind the ear, right? So this bone behind the ear is drilled in the same, more or less in the same shape as the second component, and we make a hole which goes from behind the ear into the cochlea. Okay, so the hole goes into the cochlea by what is called a posterior tympanoid, but that's too technical. Just get the idea of this whole surgery. So we push it through a hole into the cochlea, and that last bit that you see, that is this part, the electrode, that curvature you see, that last bit there, that goes into the cochlea, the snail like thing that is inside there. So that last bit, the electrode stimulates the cochlea. So the sound is taken by the external component and it is fed into the internal component. Now how does that happen? So the second component is fixed into the bone. We put the skin back. The skin heals over the second component. Okay, and then after the healing is over, we put the first component and we, through a magnet, the magnet obviously works through the skin as well. The inside component has a magnetic substance, outside also. So through the magnet, this attaches itself to the skin and transmits the sound frequencies to the inside component. So the external component can be removed and put back. It stays attached to the skin using a magnet. Okay, so this is how a cochlear implant basically works. Now cochlear implant, as I told you, what it does is it stimulates the cochlea directly, and the cochlea is where is a sensory neural component. This is damaged, so it stimulates the cochlea. So when it stimulates the cochlea, the whole thing starts functioning much better. This, if there's a problem in the cochlea, it cannot be rehabilitated using a hearing aid. Okay, hearing aid is too primitive a device to stimulate a cochlea that is dysfunctional. So we have a cochlear implant. Now the surgery itself is not too complicated. Yes, it requires training. It is not done in all centers. There are, in Bangalore, I would say there are less than about 4 or 5 centers that do cochlear implants. All over India, I think there are less than 50 centers that do cochlear implantation. The reason why cochlear implantation is a niche surgery is because of two reasons. One is the surgeon needs to be trained in the technique itself, but the other most important reason is that the implant itself is very expensive. The cost is in lakhs. The cheapest implant is anything between 6 to 8 lakhs, and the most expensive implants is anything between 15 to 17 lakhs plus GST. Now, the reason why implant is so expensive is that, first and foremost, the components inside the implant are very, very expensive. A lot of electrode materials are platinum based, and that makes it very expensive. And the technology too involves very complicated infrastructure, which includes the speech processor, the magnet, the coils, the receptors, stimulator complex, the electrode. All this is very, very expensive, and there are very few companies manufacturing it. If we do more implants, like in every business, the more we do implants, the more the cost comes down. At this point of time, the cost is high because not everybody can afford an implant, and government schemes have just begun supporting this program. The insurance companies do not provide for the cost of the implant. They just provide for the cost of the surgery. So if there is a situation where the government could step in or the insurance companies could fund the implants, then I'm sure a lot of people could be able to afford these implants, and that is when the market increases and the costs would come down. So at this point of time, the cochlear implantation is the only solution to a deafness that is caused due to a sensory neural hearing loss. When I say sensory neural hearing loss, for those who have been with me right from the beginning, I told you there are two components, part A, part B. Part A is conductive, part B is from the inner ear and beyond. So there's a problem in the inner ear and beyond, so cochlear implant is the only solution. Now we come to what would happen if there is a situation where there is no nerve. Now there is the cochlea, the external ear, middle ear and the inner ear is all normal, but there is no nerve, or there is a birth defect where there is no nerve that goes from the cochlea to the brain. So in that case, we have to put the electrode into the brain stem, So this is called an auditory brainstem implant. Now this is a much more complicated surgery. The rest of the things are the same. There is an external component, internal component, but the electrode that I showed you, the pictures that I showed you earlier, the electrode, instead of going to the cochlea where the problem was in the cochlea, now the problem is not in the cochlea. The problem is that there is no nerve beyond the cochlea, so the electrode itself has to go into the brain stem. So this is called auditory brainstem implantation. Auditory brainstem implantation means that the electrode through surgery is not put into the cochlea, but it's put into the brain stem. This again involves a more extensive surgery. We are not only drilling the bone to reach the cochlea, we're going much beyond, deeper. We are opening up the meninges, the dura of the brain. We are going into the brain, called this area called the CP angle, the cerebellopontine angle, and we are putting the electrode into the brain stem. So that's the most extreme kind of implant that we have. Now that is used in patients or generally in babies who have lost hearing due to a congenital defect involving the cochlear nerve, or when there is no cochlear nerve. This is also used in situations where there are tumors in adults, where there are tumors which destroy the cochlear nerve, like in vestibular schwannomas, in NF2 neurofibromatosis. There are many situations where the cochlear nerve goes. Now, if there is a situation where both the cochlear nerves are gone, then due to tumor, due to congenital defect, then we do what is called an auditory brainstem implantation. So cochlear implantation, next step auditory brainstem. So we begin with the lowest extreme is a hearing aid. It's just a loudspeaker put into the ear canal. Next step, what Dr. Kavita explained, is a bone anchored hearing implant, which is used to which is used to rehabilitate conductive hearing loss. We are not talking about that also today. The next thing is cochlear implantation, and the final thing is auditory brainstem implantation. I really wish we could have been able to show our presentations, our PowerPoint presentations, which could have probably explained this whole concept much better, but unfortunately that was not possible. I'm going to take in a few questions. For those of you who are interested, you could drop in a comment. On the left side of your screen, I think there is a comment section. I can take in a couple of questions right away. Mr. Kanwal J. Thakur is here with us. His asked us, his question is cochlear implant, does it work for any age? And are there any precautions to be taken in daily lifestyle after implant? The cochlear implant, remember, is for those people who are completely deaf. Okay, if one ear works, then we don't do a cochlear implant in the other ear unless the patient wants a binaural hearing, which means that the patient wants a perfect hearing, both sides. Okay, but generally it is used in patients who are bilaterally deaf. Okay, so it works for any age, but in children, you have to remember there's another concept. Okay, in young children who are born deaf, the earlier you put the cochlear implant, the better. It is best to be put before 5 years of age. After 5 years, the results of cochlear implantation in a congenitally deaf child tends to be bad. Okay, now why is this so? You must understand that there is a certain phenomenon in the brain called plasticity. Now, when the brain, in the brain there are many parts which corresponds to various areas. Now, the hearing area in the brain corresponds to the cochlear nerve and the pathway from there on. Now, if after birth that there is no input into the hearing area of the brain because the baby has some problem in his ear, then the brain thinks that this area is going a waste. So what happens is the adjacent areas, the nearby areas, which could be speech, which could be anything else, slowly starts eating away into the empty hearing part of the hearing area of the brain. So over a period of time, the brain tries to optimize itself. So the brain gives off these empty, useless areas to other parts of the body, okay, which the brain controls. So this happens before 5 years. Okay, so the earlier you implant a child, the better. Before 6 months would be difficult, but we have also done implantations in about 6 months of age. Very 1 or 2 months old babies would be very difficult. I'm not very sure if there are any reports where babies have been implanted as young as 1 or 2 months, but 6 months is where we begin, and we go up to 5 or even up to 7 years. Okay, after this, the results, we can put an implant, but because of the plasticity, the brain area of hearing may be eaten up by other areas, so the results could be not so good. Now, what precautions? Yes, this is not a normal situation. You have an implant inside, which is very expensive, under the skin, covered, completely covered. You have an external device which goes on and off. You can take it and put it back like a hearing aid. You have to take care of this implant. You can't ignore the fact that there is something precious which costs 8 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 17 lakhs inside under your skin. So the person with an implant has to take care that he doesn't fall down or hurt his part of the head behind the ear. And the implant itself needs servicing, battery change and stuff like that. So it's not going to be like just wearing a spectacles. Remember, this is an implant. A spectacles which rehabilitates vision is a corrective device. It doesn't go inside the eye, right? So this goes inside the ear into the cochlea. So lifestyle changes are necessary to take care of the implant. Any other questions? And I'll be happy to take another 1 or 2 questions. For those of you who have any doubts or any questions regarding cochlear implants, kindly drop in a comment and I'll be happy to answer. Meanwhile, thanks everybody for staying on with us. It's been a wonderful morning. I hope the session was easy. comprehensible, I would say, for you to understand the topic. I hope we have thrown in enough light regarding cochlear implants and other auditory implants. We at Apollo Spectra do cochlear implants regularly, and this is an established cochlear implant center. We have the surgical capacity and also the rehabilitative team to take care of patients after surgery. What is very important, and what we have not discussed today, because we focus on the surgical aspects of cochlear implant, what we have not discussed is the rehabilitation after the cochlear implant. So once the implant is put, remember the child, it's a gift to the child, okay, or an adult. So in a child especially, the child starts hearing for the first time, and that's a gift, that's a magic, that's a miracle that's happening. So this takes a certain time for the child to get used to. Imagine yourself getting a sixth sense. We have five senses. Imagine that you have a new power tomorrow and you didn't know till now, and you experience this new sense. You would find it scary, you would find it fascinating, you would find it magical, but it will take you a while for you to get used to a new sense, isn't it? Similarly for a child, when a child goes in and experiences a completely new thing that it never knew it had the possibility to experience before, this can be both fascinating, magical, as well as a little traumatizing or scary for the child, especially a child who's 6 months old, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years old. So there is a whole rehabilitative element component to what happens after surgery. So this is taken care of by audiologists and speech and language pathologists. So we have a good team that takes care of this child. This child needs to be rehabilitated for close to 1 year before before the implant can be optimally used. So that's an important aspect of treatment as well, not only surgery but the post rehabilitative protocols. And we have to have a very experienced cochlear implant audiology team to rehabilitate the child and to make the child, to hold the child and make it walk along the path of recovery using a cochlear implant. So this part we have not discussed. Maybe we'll keep it for another day. So thank you, everybody. It's been a great pleasure. It's been a great morning for us, and it's the first time that me and Dr. Kavita have been on a Facebook live chat in this page of Apollo Spectra Hospitals. Thank you once again for joining with us and being with us, and have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.